Good afternoon. Today we're going to be discussing Piaget's theory of cognitive development. Piaget referred to his work as genetic epistemology, or the study of the origin, genesis, of knowledge, epistemology. Because Piaget's focus was not learning specific information or topics, but rather the way fundamental concepts and ideas are understood as a person grows, Piaget's main concern was with the development of children. Because of this, he focused on abilities which are gained rather than taught, things that develop from both biological and environmental factors. First, we'll look at Piaget's stages of cognitive development. These stages are not gradual, but rather discrete. This means that looking at any child in particular, you can place them into one and exactly one of these stages. Rates of development can vary between children, but no stage can be skipped. First, we look at the first stage, the sensory motor stage, which lasts about until birth, or from birth until age 2. During this stage, the infant develops object permanence, meaning that it develops, he or she rather, develops some concept that even if an object isn't present, it may still exist somewhere. This can be observed by looking at an infant calling for either a parent or possibly an object. Next, we look at stage 2, the pre-operational stage, which lasts from about ages 2 to 7. During this stage, the child develops the ability to think symbolically. This means that a student can comprehend that an object or an idea can represent another object. However, children still generally think egocentrically and with their self at the center, and they have trouble seeing things from someone else's perspective. This stage is also when most of a child's linguistic development occurs. Children during this stage gain the ability to form complex grammatical structures and form sentences as an adult would. During the third stage, the concrete operational stage, the child begins to develop operational thought. They can understand concepts and make logical conclusions by applying rules to physical, concrete objects or representations, but they may still have trouble with abstract ideas or applying rules on things that don't exist physically. The child also, at various points, begins to grasp the concept of conservation of different properties, mass, matter, length, and volume. Conservation is the concept, or the understanding of conservation is the concept that while something's appearance may change, certain other properties about that thing may still remain the same. The fourth stage is the formal operational stage and begins at age 11, approximately, and lasts into adulthood. During this stage, the child develops the ability to think abstractly. The child can carry out formal operations on ideas and concepts. At this stage, the child can logically develop and test hypotheses as well. Next, we look at Piaget's theory of schema. A schema can be thought of as a unit of knowledge. Each schema corresponds to a specific task or situation and can be adapted to new situations. As we develop, we gain more schemata, and the schemata we have become more complex. As we experience new things, we adapt our schemata to deal with the new things in various ways. When we find a new situation, we already have a schema that can be applied. We assimilate the new situation to the schema that we have. If we don't have a schema for a new situation, we must develop a new one, or fundamentally alter the schema that we have for the situation, which is called accommodation. Both accommodation and assimilation require active learning rather than passive. In a situation of equilibrium, a student or a child is not being in a situation of equilibrium, a child is not being tested. They're not being provided with new stimuli that they don't have schema for already. However, contrasting with that is a situation of disequilibrium or equilibration. In equilibration, a student or child is forced to develop new schema. This is the driving force for development. We then look at our next topic of discovery learning. Children learn better, or the theory of discovery learning suggests that children learn better by doing and practicing with or without the help of another, rather than simply reading or hearing information. Teachers should aim to make their students better learners by helping them discover information, not just teaching it to them. They should also encourage collaboration between students. By encouraging collaboration, more students with more advanced skills are able to reinforce their learning by teaching it to students with not as advanced skills. The students receiving learning from their peers are also able to better understand hearing from someone other than the teacher. This leads us into the theory of the zone of proximal development. The zone of proximal development is the distance between a learner's current ability to perform a task alone and his or her ability to perform it with assistance. Working within the zone of proximal development, or scaffolding, is likely to improve a learner's performance. In this scaffolding, a learner receives guidance or assistance from a more knowledgeable other. This can be a teacher, parent, or a peer. With effective scaffolding practices, a teacher should be able to match the level of assistance to the learner's needs. This means that if a learner is performing quite well and not struggling as much, the teacher can take a step back and allow the student to think for themselves. Conversely, if a student is struggling a little bit more, the teacher can provide more specific guidance. With effective scaffolding, a teacher should also be able to hold a child's interest in the topic at hand and should focus on one or a few aspects on which the child needs help with. Returning to working with a more knowledgeable other, working with peers encourages knowledge through social interaction. This can be in a few different ways, including but not limited to collaborative learning and reciprocal teaching. With collaborative learning, as mentioned before, students are divided into groups or pairs, and they're able to help each other. This helps both the students with more experience and less experience reinforce their learning. With reciprocal teaching, students practice with teachers summarizing, questioning, clarifying, and predicting. This can be done either for individual students or also in groups of 4. In groups, each student can be assigned a role. The roles will then rotate throughout the lesson or reading until the lesson has been completed. This completes our lesson on Piaget's theory of cognitive development. Thank you for joining us.